Hello everyone! Thank you so much for joining me on another video. In this one, I will show you how to knit up these beautiful and simple washcloths created with the Pebble stitch. This is a very pretty stitch and it works great for a project such as this one. The little pebble bumps create a very nice exfoliating effect when used as a washcloth, and I think this will be a great weekend project that you can make with just one skein, and you can pair it with a very nice fancy soap, and that'll make for a very nice gift for a loved one. Now I have provided the project pattern details in the video description field. Before we get going, a quick reminder and request: if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button as it really helps my channel, and then please subscribe if you haven't done so. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you very much. Okay, so for this washcloth, you will need one skein of 100% 4-ply cotton yarn and US size 8 needles. One size smaller or larger in the needles should be okay. I'm just going to demonstrate with these double-pointed needles. You don't need double-pointed, just regular needles is fine. Now, I used the Lily Sugar and Cream skein for this solid color washcloth, and then I used the Loops and Threads Capri Eco Cotton yarn for the variegated one. Actually, this Capri yarn, as you can see, it's made from recycled cotton, and it actually feels softer than the Lily Sugar and Cream yarn. This is not a paid promotion for either, but I really like this yarn a lot. The only downside is that this skein is slightly smaller than the usual 2 or 2.5 ounce Lily Sugar and Cream yarn. As you can see, it's 1.94 ounces, but still one skein of this will be enough for one washcloth. So let's see how these are knit up. You will need to cast on 34 stitches. Now for this demonstration, I'm only casting on 10 stitches in the interest of time. For the pattern itself though, the Pebble Stitch pattern, you need an even number of stitches, and it is an 8-row repeat pattern. Now traditionally, this Pebble Stitch is knit as a 4-row repeat pattern, but I modified this to an 8-row to avoid an issue, which I will explain at the end of the video. Also note that what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple stitches on either side to have a border, to have a garter stitch border. So keep that in mind when you're casting stitches, especially if you decide to knit a smaller or a larger washcloth than the one that's described in the project pattern. So we start by knitting 4 rows of garter stitch for the bottom border. So I've cast on 10 stitches here, and I've already knit 3 rows. I'm going to go ahead and knit the 4th row. Now when you knit the 4th row, this is where you place a stitch marker to mark the garter stitch border. So I knit the first 2 stitches, then I put my stitch marker, so I know that's where my garter stitch border is, and then I'll knit the remaining stitches all the way down to the last 2 stitches. And then you place a stitch marker right there, and then you knit the last 2 stitches. Oop, my stitch marker jumped. Here we go. And then you knit the last 2 stitches. So now our border is done, and we're ready to get started with the Pebble Stitch pattern. So in the washcloth, we're essentially done with this part, and now we're going to get started with this pattern. So for row 1, which is the right side, we will just knit all the stitches. So you just knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and then whenever you come to a stitch marker, you're just going to slip it over and you continue knitting. Again, here we go. We slip this, then we continue knitting. And that's the end of row 1, which is the right side. You turn your work. Row 2, which is the reverse side. Again, you're going to knit the first 2 stitches. Then you're going to slip the marker. Then you're going to purl all the stitches all the way down to the last 2 stitches. So here we go. Purl the first stitch. After you purl that first stitch, just a small tip, bring the yarn to the back, tug it just a little bit, and then continue purling. That'll just make sure that this stitch stays nice and taut and doesn't have slack that tends to happen. Here we go. We're going to keep purling all the way down to the last 2 stitches. Then we knit those 2 stitches. And that's the end of row 2. You turn your work. Row 3, you're going to knit the first 2 stitches. You're going to slip the marker. And now the pattern repeat all the way down to the last 2 stitches. It's a knit two together. So you're going to take your right needle, insert it in the front loops of both stitches on the left needle, and you're going to knit them together like so. Let's see that a couple more times. You just do knit two together all the way down to the last two stitches, which are right here. We move our stitch marker, and then we knit the last two stitches. Now keep in mind, at the end of row 3, your stitch count is going to be off, but we'll make up for that in row 4. So just keep that in mind. You turn your work and you start row 4. Now for row 4, again, we knit the first two stitches. Every row for this all the way down to the top border, you're going to knit the first two stitches and the last two stitches, right? So you move your slip marker. Now comes the slightly tricky part in this pattern, which is why I would put this pattern at an intermediate level or a very adventurous advanced beginner, because now we have to make one stitch. And the way we're going to make one stitch is by taking the right needle and making the stitch in this horizontal bar before the next stitch. So you can see this bar right here. We're going to take this needle and we're going to insert it into that bar like that. And then we're going to show as if we're going to knit, we're going to bring the stitch through. So now we've made one stitch, and remember, you're not going to drop off the stitch. We've just made one stitch without dropping off any stitches into that bar. So this is called make one into the horizontal bar, right? So we've done that, and then knit one. That is your pattern repeat all the way down to the last two stitches. So let's see that a couple more times. We're going to make one into this horizontal bar. So take this right needle, insert it into that bar, and knit it. And we've made one. And then knit one. And same thing here. And knit one. Now, by doing this make one, we are adding one new stitch. And this makes up for the knit two together decrease that we did in the previous row. Right? So then we keep doing this make one, knit one all the way down to the last two stitches, which we've already done. So now we're going to slip our marker and knit the last two stitches for our garter stitch border. And that's the end of row 4. Rows 5, 6, and 7 are identical to rows 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go ahead and speed up through that, and then I'll meet you all back at row 8, which is slightly different. Row 8 is very similar to row 4, except that we will flip the order of our make one, knit one. So for row 8, we're going to knit the first two stitches for our border. Then we slip the marker. And now instead of doing a make one first and then a knit one, we're going to do a knit one first. So here we go, knit one and make one. The make one is the same. We're still making one through this horizontal bar, right? Before the next stitch. So knit one, make one, and we're going to keep doing knit one, make one all the way to the last two stitches. Okay, slip the marker and now knit one and knit two, and that is the end of row 8. So you'll turn your work, you'll see this is the right side of the work. With each 4 rows, you form one ridge of these pebbles. So this is how you know that you've completed 8 rows, right? With the first 4 rows, we formed this ridge of pebbles, and then with the next 4 rows, we have now formed this second ridge. So you'll keep repeating rows 1 through 8 of this pebble stitch pattern all the way through for about a total of 14 repeats, okay? So 14 repeats, or I guess whatever length of washcloth you would like. And then at the end of it, you will do a row 1 and a row 2 again. And the reason to do that is to make sure that there's even spacing before the border. So you'll do row 1 and row 2. And then for the border, you'll actually do 4 rows of purl rather than knit. And again, we're doing that more so for the spacing. Once you do that, then you're just going to bind off your work, any bind off of your choice, and then you can use a tapestry needle or a crochet hook and weave in your yarn ends, and your washcloth is ready to use. Now, I had promised at the start that I'll tell you why we're doing an 8-row repeat. And the reason for that is if you just do that 4-row repeat, rows 1 through 4, and just keep doing that, what I saw was the work actually ends up slanting a little bit to one side. And this is why I added the next 4 rows to kind of make the work balance out, so it appears straight rather than at a slant. Now maybe the slanted work can be blocked and straightened out, but it just didn't sit right with me. That's why an 8-row repeat. Hope that helps, and I do hope you give this one a try. I think it is such a fun project that'll knit up really quickly. And let me know if you have any questions. Leave a comment if you have project ideas, or simply to say hi. I love hearing from everyone, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching. Until I see you again on another video, happy knitting!